In this lesson, I'm going to be showing you how to paint glass and how to capture that reflective quality in glass. So I'm doing this picture right here of some flowers in a vase, and there's a lot of highlights here on the glass. And sometimes it's really tricky to capture all this in a painting, but I'm going to break it down step by step, and it's going to be really fun. I'm using acrylics today, and I just have, a variety of acrylics, a lot of primary colors, and I just looked for colors that I see here in my source. And then I'm going to be using 3 different size brushes, so a large, medium, and small. And I always like to start with a big brush first. So I'm going to paint this kind of light pink color for the background, and so that's showing through the glass, so I'm just going to start with that as a base. So this is just to get something on the canvas so we're not working with a plain white canvas. And this is going to be kind of an alla prima style. And that's why it's really great to try this technique with acrylics, because they dry so fast and you can just layer your paint pretty quickly. And now I'm realizing that I'm painting my outfit. I'm all pink, and this is not Barbie themed. I did not watch the Barbie movie, but it just so happens that everything's pink. So now I have a nice little underpainting, and I like to leave some of those drips showing. It just makes it more interesting. So now I am going to mix a slightly darker transparent color. If you squint your eyes, you can really see a lot in your source. So you want to kind of squint, and this helps you get the values right. So around the glass, there's a very small hint of a shadow, and that's kind of a purpley bluish color. So now I'm going to map out what I'm seeing. So this doesn't have to be perfect. You can always paint over it. It's just acrylic, so it'll dry really fast. And so I'm getting that shadow right there. And now I'm looking at this kind of shadow here, making this shape. And the key to painting glass is really getting out of that mindset that you're painting this 3D object. You want to see through it. So I'm going to add these stems in there, and just, ignore the fact that it's this round vase. Just think about all the shadows. You just want to get all that correct, and getting those round kind of ellipse shapes, that's really important. So I'm going to go ahead and add those stems. And when you're painting glass, sometimes whatever's inside the glass is kind of magnified, and it won't be so straight. Like if you look closely, these stems are kind of jaggedy. They don't line up exactly straight. So it's important to get all your midtones and darker colors first, and then we'll add highlights last. And I'm so far just using mostly transparent colors, a little bit of yellow ochre for the stems, but everything is really transparent. So now I'm adding this kind of circular shape at the bottom of the vase. And I feel like just by adding that, it already has this kind of 3D quality to it. Okay, so now I'm switching to a smaller brush to get more details in. I'm gonna start working on the flowers. So also a tip to painting glass, you really want to look really closely at your source and put all those shadows in the right place. It's really important so that you have that kind of 3D effect. So I'm looking at the kind of ripples in the water here. I'm just adding that here, kind of exaggerating it a little bit. So all this is going to look a lot better once we add the highlights. I think a common mistake artists make when painting glass is they don't add enough of the shadows. They think that it's mostly like a lot of highlights or, a lot of white, but you really need those shadows in there for it to make sense. Okay, so now that all my shadows are in, I'm going to start adding those highlights. So I'm mixing this color that I see in the background, and that is to paint in between here where I have a little bit too much darks. I'm going to paint some of that out. So if your glass is totally transparent like mine, then the background and the colors that you're mixing for inside the vase and outside have to be the same color so that it really has that glass-like quality to it. I'm noticing that there's this kind of slightly lighter color up here. It's almost white, and so that's going to be some of my highlights that I'm adding to give it the roundness. And with this brush especially, I love using just the tip of it, getting paint on both sides, and then using that tip to get really fine lines and details. So now I'm really looking at all these different patterns that the light's making and going in with brighter highlights. So another trick is to just go around the edges of your vase and try to get it really crisp and smooth, because that's how glass is. So you don't want any bumpy, weird edges. And that will help your vase look more realistic. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to go in with this small brush and just add those final highlights and little details. And when you squint your eyes, you can really see the brightest highlight in your source, which is right here and right there. So those are going to be pretty much pure white. And you want to make sure everything before that point is finished. So, everything underneath that layer. So this is the very last layer on top. I'm trying to make sure the highlight is really straight and as close to the photo as possible. So I haven't stood back from this painting. It might be a little bit crooked. Yeah, it's like ever so slightly. This is like maybe a little bit too much this way, but I'm just gonna leave it. It is what it is. But at home, if you stand far away from your painting, that's really gonna help you see what proportions are off. So in this stage, every little highlight that you add really matters for it to really feel like it's reflecting light, and to have that 3D look, you need to get all these highlights in there. I had a lot of fun painting this, and I think it's at a good stopping point. So you can always, of course, take this further or add oils to it and really get that richness and depth. And you can take the same technique and actually do it with oils and do an Alla Prima oil still life if you wanted. But I think it's so important as an artist to know how to paint see-through objects and learn how to really capture that reflective quality and how to capture 3D form accurately.